Monday the Dietitian, and welcome to Healthy Made Simple, where I show you how to make healthy eating simple. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a protein dough that is very easy and simple to make at home and can be used to make bread rolls and pita breads or flatbreads. This dough is so simple to make. It only takes 4 ingredients and it's higher in protein thanks to the yogurt we're using in there. So this recipe is for those of you that like bread, but maybe shy away from it because, it's higher in carbs, or maybe you don't want to buy, a big thing of bread rolls for home, but you would like to make something maybe smaller in batch for you and your family. This was so easy to make. I was really shocked, and I'm going to show you how you can get these bread rolls. These I actually made in the air fryer, and it's got a nice crispy outside, and then the inside, I'll show you what it looks like. Look at that. Woo. There we go, and there's the inside of it. You can see it's nice and soft and really tastes like bread. And then we also have pita breads, and I'll show you a couple different ways you can make your pita breads. I've made it fried it up with some oil and butter or without any fat, and I'll show you what the different ones look like based on what you're using to cook them up. But either way, they taste absolutely delicious, and these are a great option as a side carb. You can do a little pizza thing on this. You can top it off with avocado or meats to make like an open face sandwich. You can probably even open these up and fill them inside because they do puff up and are airy in the middle. So if you're interested to see how you can make this magical protein dough at home so that you can make some bread or flatbreads every once in a while to curb those bread cravings, stay tuned to see how I put this together. Alrighty, let's go. All right, we're gonna start with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour in a mixing bowl. And then to that, we're gonna be adding in baking powder next. And we're gonna do 2.25 teaspoons of baking powder for this. Now, if you have self-rising flour at home, you can certainly use that instead of doing the all-purpose flour with baking powder, and we're gonna be doing salt next. Basically, the addition of the baking powder and the salt makes it a self-rising flour. So if you have self-rising flour, you can just use that directly. If you don't, you can just make your own self-rising flour like this. That's not an ingredient that I use very often, so I don't see a reason to buy it for home. So I just add in baking powder and salt, which I do have at home. All right, next we're gonna do salt. And for the salt, you're aiming for about 1/3 teaspoon, and I don't have a 1/3 teaspoon measure, so I'm just going to use my 1/2 teaspoon measure and not go up all the way, right around there. All right, and put that in. And then next, we're going to whisk this together. All right, I got my whisk, so I'm just going to make sure the baking powder and the salt completely mixes in there first. And then after that, we're going to be adding in the yogurt. Next, we're going to add in our yogurt. Now for this, I do recommend that you use some sort of either a Greek yogurt or European style yogurt, something that's going to have a little bit more protein. I am using non-fat plain yogurt, so nothing flavored for this. You want it to be plain. And as you can see from the way I've been pouring, the consistency of this guy, I mixed it all together. So in the container when you have your yogurt, the liquid will kind of settle at the top, and then you'll have this kind of thicker yogurt at the bottom. What I do is I mix all of that together so you have this nice, smooth and creamy, and kind of at the end of it, you can see smooth and creamy consistency, so that it distributes better in the dough. You do not want it to be clunky going in. So nice, smooth Greek yogurt going in. And then next, I'm just going to use the same spoon that I used to give this a mix around and start forming our dough. once it comes together, we're gonna pull it out and start working on it, but I'm just using my spoon to give this a mix for now. Now you can see the dough is starting to kind of clump together, so I'm just going to dump this out onto a surface that's been floured so we can work it and get our dough together. Now for this, I'm just using a cutting board that I've floured. If you want to just use your countertop for this, you absolutely could do that. Any surface that's clean and has been floured. You'll find that this dough is quite sticky. So if you find that it is sticking, just use a little bit more flour to get rid of the stickiness. All right, so I got it all on my cutting board and my hands are clean. I just washed them right before I started filming this section. So I'm just gonna use my hands to bring this dough together and work it until I've got a nice dough ball going. All right, you can see my dough is starting to come together. It's still a little bit clumpy, so I'm still just working it out and picking up all these little pieces. And I do have some extra flour on the side here. If I find that it's sticking to my hands too much, I use that flour to kind of make it a little bit less sticky. And I will give a warning, I'm not a bread maker. It's not something I do very often at all, actually. So I'm not as good at kneading dough. But those of you that are more experienced in bread making will probably have an easier time working with this. Even for me, for somebody who doesn't make very much dough-based things, this is not that bad. You're just kind of pushing it together. All right, and just like that, we got ourselves a nice dough. Look at that. I just kneaded it basically until it came together, until all the little bits and flakes that were coming apart were nicely incorporated. And I did sprinkle some flour on it as I was going and kind of smooth it out to make sure it wasn't sticking to my hands, because I did notice that it would stick to my palm quite a bit. So now that we got this, I'm gonna put this back in the bowl actually where I mixed it. I'm gonna let that rest for a little bit while I go and clean this up a little bit and get my stuff ready to cook these up. Now with this, what I'm gonna do, I wanna show you both ways that I'm going to be cooking this. So I'm going to do it two different ways. I'm gonna do one as kind of a flatbread option and one as a bread roll, which is gonna be in the air fryer. So first I'm gonna start by preheating my air fryer. I find that it helps cook it more evenly. So I'm gonna preheat my air fryer at 350 for 3 minutes. Clean this up, which gives my dough a little chance to rest and rise a little bit. And then we'll cut it up, portion it out into the flatbread and the bread rolls. All right, my air fryer is preheating at 350. And now we're gonna work on portioning out our dough. Now, if you want to be very particular about this, you can weigh out your dough and measure it out that way. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm making this at home for us, so I don't care if they're not perfectly even. But if you want a nice even cook, or maybe if you're making this for someone, you may want to measure it out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half and use half for the flatbreads, as I mentioned, and half for the bread rolls. I'm just going to go down the middle, eyeballing it. And with this, what I found is when you're making bread rolls, from half of this, I got 3 bread rolls. So from one portion, you can get 6 bread rolls. And from a half like this, I got 4 flatbreads. So you can get 8 flatbreads from this. So either 6 bread rolls or 8 flatbreads. And of course, if you want to change up the sizes and do bigger flatbreads or bigger bread rolls, you can do different portions, but the portions I'm going to show you are going to be for that. Okay, So I got my 2 different sizes, and you can see I want to show you kind of the aeration that's already happening inside thanks to that baking powder that we added in. And then I'm going to portion this out. This one looks a little bit bigger, so I'm going to use this one for my flatbreads. And we're going to make 4 flatbreads, so I'm just going to cut that down the middle and then cut those pieces in half. And there is my air fryer. It just got done preheating, so that's great news. All right, these are going to be for my flatbreads. And then this one I'm going to cut into 3s so that I can make the bread rolls out of this. And we'll make the bread rolls first because they are going to take a little bit longer than the flatbreads to cook. So I want to get those in so everything can come out at the same time. All right, and these are our 3 bread roll portions. All right, so let's start with the bread rolls. I'm going to start by adding in a little bit of flour to my cutting board. And then with this, what I'm going to do is I like to coat it up with flour a little bit first. And then I just kind of give it a little knead in my hands as if I'm making meatballs. And then I give it a nice round roll. And I don't want to work the dough too much. I don't want it to be a tough dough. So I try to be as gentle as possible, but I do want it to all stay together. And give that a nice little rolly roll. And there we go. That's kind of about what we're looking for. Right around that size. Okay, so that's one. Let me do the other 2 as well. All right, my dough balls are all ready to go on the side here, and I got my air fryer. And in this, I have a tablespoon of butter that's been melted. We're gonna be putting that on the top of the rolls, but just to make sure the bottoms don't stick, I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil in the spots where I'm gonna be putting my rolls. You can also use an olive oil spray for this. But since I have this melted butter in my hands already, I'm just gonna put that on here just so the bottoms of my rolls do not stick to my air fryer. Okay, next we're just gonna put the dough balls right in those spots that we buttered up. There we go. And then we're gonna top them off with more of the melted butter, and that helps give it a really nice crust in the air fryer. Alrighty, my rolls are all buttered up. So next I'm gonna take this over to my air fryer, and this is gonna go in the air fryer at 350 for right around 16 minutes. Okay, so let me put that in and I'll be right back. While our rolls are going in the air fryer, let's work on making some flatbreads next. Okay, so I have the little piece and I'm just adding a little bit more flour to my working surface. And for this, you can use a rolling pin if you have one. I know I have one somewhere in my kitchen. I don't know where it is. And I've been a little too lazy to look. So I'm going for a more rustic look with my flatbreads. I'm just going to use my hands to stretch and flatten it out. And the thinness you're going for really depends on the person. I'll show you what thinness I like because these will rise up as you are pan frying them. And so I do suggest keeping them a little bit on the thinner side to make sure that the inside cooks thoroughly. So I'm just gonna use my hands to flatten it out. Get all your frustrations out on your dough. You're frustrated today. And again, I'm going for a more rustic shape. I'm not trying to achieve a certain shape. If you were, probably you could even cut the dough to be the exact shape you were looking for. I really do not care about any of that. As long as it tastes yummy, the looks are not as important for me personally. Okay, so this guy is right around what I would like in terms of thinness, so I'll show you. That's kind of right around the thinness you're going for. So not too thick, not too thin. And you can experiment with this as well. This one kind of turned out oblong. You can go for more of a circular shape if you wanted to. Depends on what you want to use it for. Something like this I think is great for even like a little pizza, or maybe if you want to do like an open face sandwich kind of thing. These are a little bit too thick to like roll up or anything like that. It's more stuff that you can put on top, or you could even open up the inside and stick stuff inside too. All right, so I have my first one on here. Let me do all 4 of these guys, and then I'll show you all the different ways you can cook this, depending on whether you use butter to cook it, or you use oil to cook it, or you add more oil or less oil. It does come out slightly differently, and you can even cook it without adding any sort of fat to it. So no oil, no butter. You can put it straight on like a flat top or even a pan, and it still cooks beautifully. So I'm going to show you all the different ways you can cook this once I've got all 4 of my flatbreads together, so that you have some different options as well depending on what you prefer. Alright, the first way we're going to cook this guy is going to be with butter, and this is that leftover butter from our buns. When I had melted it, I had a little bit left in my bowl, so I just poured that in here. And once the butter starts warming up, I'm just going to put my flatbread in there to cook it up. Now this has been by far my husband's favorite way of cooking these guys, and I do think that I didn't add any garlic to this one, but I think if you add some garlic to your butter here, this would turn out absolutely delicious. Alright, let's give this guy a flip. Look at that. Beautiful. Alright, I think he's looking pretty good, so I'm going to take this one off. It just needs a few minutes each side, and I'm cooking these at medium to high temp. Next, we're going to be cooking with olive oil spray, and I'm just using Trader Joe's olive oil spray, and I did do more of a heavier spray this time, and I'm going to show you one with less spray next time. In the meantime, my bread rolls came out of the air fryer. Look at these guys. Oh my gosh, they look delicious. I'll cut one open in a little bit and show you. All right, this one's puffing up real good, and I think this one's ready for a flip. Look at that. So you can kind of see it's a little bit different compared to the butter one. The butter one definitely looks more buttery as well too. I don't know if you can see that up close, but compared to this guy, a little bit different and slightly different taste too. All right, this guy is ready to come off too. So let's add him to the plate. All right, so for this next one, I am still doing the same olive oil spray, but I'm gonna do less oil. And I am cleaning my pan in between each one. I'm using a paper towel to clean it off so that I don't have residue left over from the last batch. All right, this one looks ready to flip. And you can see it's a little bit different than the other ones. The more oil and fat you add, the more of this crystallization you're getting on top. Versus to me, this looks a lot more like just regular pita bread that you would get at the store. Look at the puff on this one. I've noticed the less oil you add, or the less fat you add, the more puff you're gonna get from it. And I do like seeing that puff because that means that I could open up the inside and stuff it with things too. All right, this guy is ready to come off too. Perfect. And for this last one, we're not going to add anything, just a nice hot pan. Straight in it goes. All right, this one's ready for flipping too. And since we didn't use any oil on this one, you can see there's still some flour left on it, and it's still edible, it's not a problem, but adding in the oil does help with that. And I think this was just sitting in a batch that had a bunch of flour right there, so it kind of picked it up. All right, this guy is ready too. Perfect. Alrighty, and just like that, we got our nice plate with our dinner rolls here, and we've got our pita breads here too. So I'm really, really excited to eat through all of this. And I did open up one of the breads so I can show you what the inside looks like. You can see it's really nice and soft. You can see the airiness that's in there too. You can see all the little air pockets that are inside, and this tastes delicious. It is dense, so one of these is still plenty to kind of curb that bread craving, because it is a little bit on the denser side compared to like a French bread, for example. And then with these pita breads, so many different uses for them. So I hope this was a good idea for you. This is really easy to make. I do encourage you to try it if you enjoy bread and if you want to do something as an alternative, especially if you eat healthy. Chances are you probably have some sort of a yogurt on hand, and if you have flour, baking powder, and salt, you've got all the ingredients you need to make this, and it really does not take that much time. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos like this where I show you how to make healthy eating easy and simple at home. Thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.